We're going to show them that size and numbers don't matter. What matters is that we, the Velkari Empire, called for a ceasefire. The message came through all channels, broadcast to every human receiver. High Archon Thelvrax appeared on screens across the solar system, his posture formal and diplomatic. Commander Tae-wan, we propose immediate negotiations. This conflict serves no purpose. Let us discuss terms of peace. In the Lunar Command Center, Bora watched the transmission with cold eyes. Beside her, Commander Tae-wan stood with his arms crossed. Around them, the command staff waited for their leader's response. They want to negotiate because they're losing, Bora said quietly. The great Velkari Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, wants to talk peace with the primitives they tried to exterminate. Tae-wan thought about Seoul, buried under rubble. He thought about his daughter, gone in the orbital bombardment. He thought about the billions of humans who would never see their families again. Send a response, he said. One word, no, the transmission cut off. Across the Velkari fleet, confusion spread. They had offered peace. The humans had refused. They want total victory, Thelvrax's tactical officer said in disbelief. They actually think they can win. They don't think, Thelvrax replied slowly. They know. Look at the data. Every day they get stronger. Every battle they learn more. If we give them time to prepare. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Commander Tae-wan addressed the entire human fleet from his flagship. His message reached every ship, every colony, every resistance cell on Earth. The Velkari came to our home. They tried to make us slaves. When we resisted, they murdered billions of our people. Now they want peace because they're afraid. Because for the first time in 300 years, they've met a species that refuses to quit. He paused, letting his words sink in. We're not defending anymore. We're hunting. The Velkari Empire brought war to Earth. Now Earth brings war to them. We pursue them across the solar system. We pursue them across the galaxy if we must. And we don't stop until they understand what it means to threaten humanity. The human fleet surged forward. 200 ships against 4,000. By every military calculation, it was suicide. But human military calculations had been wrong since the war began. Bora's strategy was simple and brutal. The human fleet split into 20 groups of 10 ships each. Each group operated independently, striking at different parts of the Velkari formation. The enemy couldn't defend everywhere at once. Pilot Yuna led her squadron in a dive through the center of the Velkari fleet. Her fighter, now equipped with Da Yun's improved weapons, tore through enemy shields like paper. Behind her, 9 other pilots followed in perfect coordination. Target their command ships, Yuna ordered. Make them blind! The squadron destroyed 6 Velkari command vessels before the enemy could respond. Without centralized coordination, the Velkari fleet's movements became slower, more confused. On Mars, Captain Ji-ho launched his final surprise. For 4 weeks, his crew had been building something massive in secret. Now, hidden on the far side of Mars, the weapon activated. It was a railgun 10 kilometers long using Mars's entire industrial power grid. The projectile it fired was a solid tungsten slug the size of a building, accelerated to speeds approaching light. The shot crossed the distance to the Velkari fleet in seconds. It hit their flagship directly, punching through every defense, through every deck, and emerging from the other side. The flagship split in half and exploded. High Archon Thelvrax survived because he was on the command deck, the most heavily armored section. But half his crew died instantly. The explosion threw him against a bulkhead, breaking 3 of his 4 arms. Sir, we need to evacuate. His second-in-command shouted over alarms and screaming. No! Thelvrax gasped through pain. No retreat. We can still win. We must win. But even as he said it, he watched his fleet fall apart. The humans were everywhere, striking with precision and fury. His ships, designed for organized warfare, couldn't handle this chaotic assault. On Earth, Sang-woo's resistance launched a final offensive against the remaining Velkari ground forces. Every city, every town, every settlement rose up at once. The coordinated attack drove the aliens back to their landing zones. Jimin led an assault on the Busan landing zone. 2,000 resistance fighters armed with captured Velkari weapons and human determination charged the alien position. The Velkari troops, already demoralized, broke and ran for their evacuation ships. They're abandoning Earth, Sang-woo reported to military command. All Velkari ground forces are retreating to orbit. But there was no safety in orbit. The human fleet had pushed deep into the Velkari formation. Commander Taewan's flagship engaged enemy vessels at point-blank range, trading shots that destroyed both shields. "Sir, we've lost forward armor," Lieutenant Park shouted. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7. "Keep firing," Taewan ordered calmly. "All weapons. Maximum power." The UNS Indomitable and a Velkari battlecruiser destroyed each other in a mutual explosion, but Taewan and his essential crew had already evacuated to escape pods. They were picked up by another human ship within minutes. "Get me back in this fight," Taewan demanded as medical staff treated his injuries. "I'm not done yet." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought with a recklessness that terrified the Velkari. They rammed enemy vessels when out of ammunition. They set their reactors to overload and crashed into Velkari formations. They fought like every battle was their last. Engineer Dayun, working from a laboratory ship, made one final breakthrough. The neural disruptor could be modified to broadcast across entire regions of space. She activated the weapon, and 30 Velkari ships went dark simultaneously. "Deploy it again," she ordered her team. "Every ship that has the disruptor, fire it now." The neural attack spread across the Velkari fleet like a plague. Hundreds of ships lost power as their crews collapsed. The mighty armada that had conquered galaxies was being systematically dismantled by a species that had been in space for less than 2 centuries. High Archon Thelvrax, watching from his damaged flagship, finally accepted the truth. The Velkari Empire was defeated. "Send surrender terms," he said quietly. "Sir?" His tactical officer looked shocked. "Send them," Thelvrax shouted. "We've lost. This war is over." The surrender broadcast reached every human ship. For a moment there was silence. Then slowly the human fleet stopped firing. Commander Taewan, now aboard the UNS Defiant, received a direct communication from Thelvrax. "Commander, I formally surrender," the Archon said. His image showed a broken alien, bleeding and defeated. "Name your terms." Taewan looked at the officer who had ordered the destruction of Earth cities, who had killed billions of humans, who had come to enslave humanity. "Unconditional surrender," Taewan said. "The Velkari Empire is dissolved. Every species you've conquered is freed. Every occupied world is liberated. You will submit to war crimes tribunals, and you will help us build something better." Thelvrax wanted to argue, but he had no strength left. His empire was shattered. His fleet was destroyed. The species he had dismissed as primitive had beaten him completely. "I accept," he whispered. Across the solar system, human forces received the news. The war was over. Earth had won. On Mars, Captain Jiho and his crew embraced each other, crying with relief and exhaustion. On Earth, Sangwoo's resistance fighters raised captured Velkari weapons in victory. In space, pilot Yuna and her squadron performed celebratory maneuvers around the disabled enemy fleet. But in the Lunar Command Center, young strategist Bo-Ra didn't celebrate. She was already planning the next phase. "The Velkari Empire occupied 100 worlds," she said to her staff. "Those worlds need liberation. Those people need help. And there are likely other empires out there watching what happened here." She pulled up star charts showing Velkari-controlled space. "We started this war defending Earth," Bo-Ra continued. "We finish it by making sure no one ever threatens another species like the Velkari did. We build something better, a coalition of free worlds, not an empire." Commander Taewan arrived at the lunar facility 3 days later. The battle damage had been repaired, but scars remained. He looked older, tired, but undefeated. "Bo-Ra, you're right," he said, reviewing her plans. "The Velkari Empire must be dismantled. But we must do it carefully. We can't become the next tyrants." "Agreed," Bo-Ra replied. "We offer every Velkari-controlled species a choice. Join us freely or go their own way. No force, no conquest, just cooperation." Over the next weeks, the plan took shape. It would be called the Galactic Coalition. Not an empire, but an alliance. Any species could join, any species could leave. The only rule was simple. No member could enslave or conquer another. High Archon. Thelvrax, in human custody, watched the formation of this new order with mixed feelings. His empire had fallen, but in its place something better was growing. "You asked me once how we won," Taewan said, visiting the imprisoned Archon. "You want to know the truth?" Thelvrax nodded weakly. "You had every advantage," Taewan explained. "Better ships, better weapons, more numbers. But you'd never been challenged. For 300 years you won easily. You never had to adapt, to innovate, to evolve. He gestured to Earth, visible through the station window. Humans have been fighting since we learned to walk. Fighting nature. Fee. 3 weeks after the first Velkari ships arrived, the reinforcements came. 5,000 warships jumped into the solar system, the largest military force the Velkari Empire had ever assembled. High Archon Thelvrax expected to find a broken, defeated Earth. He expected to see human survivors begging for mercy. He expected the war to be over. Instead, he found Earth had transformed the entire solar system into a fortress. "This is impossible," Thelvrax muttered, staring at the tactical display. Every moon had weapon platforms. Every asteroid had been converted into a defensive position. Mars' colony, which should have been abandoned, was now pumping out warships at a rate that defied logic. "Sir, the humans have built 147 new vessels in 3 weeks," his tactical officer reported. "Our intelligence said they had no industrial capacity for this." "Your intelligence was wrong," Thelvrax replied coldly. "What else have they done?" "They've fortified the asteroid belt with over 1,000 automated weapon platforms. They've seeded Earth's orbit with mines, and they've established a command center on the lunar surface that our scans can't penetrate. Inside that lunar command center, a young strategist named Bora studied the incoming Velkari fleet. She was 23 years old and had been a military academy student when the war began. Now she commanded Earth's strategic operations. Bora had spent 3 weeks studying every Velkari battle in their recorded history. She had found their pattern. "Their fatal weakness, they always win," she said to her staff. "That's their problem. They have 300 years of victory and 0 years of adaptation. They fight the same way every time because it always works." "So how do we beat them?" asked her second-in-command. "We don't fight them," Bora smiled. "We make them fight themselves." She pulled up the asteroid belt on the main display. Thousands of rocks and debris fields floating in a massive ring around the sun. Perfect terrain for an ambush. Terrible terrain for a large, organized fleet. "Send this battle plan to Commander Taewan," Bora ordered. "We're going to use their size against them." Commander Taewan received Bora's strategy and smiled. The young woman was brilliant. Her plan was risky, maybe insane. It was perfect. "All ships pull back to the asteroid belt," he commanded. "Make it look like we're retreating. Draw them in." The human fleet, now numbering 200 ships thanks to Jiho's Mars production, fell back from Earth orbit. To the Velkari, it looked like a retreat, like the humans were finally breaking. "They're running," Thelvrax said with satisfaction. "Pursue them. Destroy them all." The massive Velkari armada surged forward, 5,000 ships moving in perfect formation. They entered the asteroid belt in organized waves, their sensors mapping safe passages through the debris. Then the asteroids exploded, not from human weapons. The asteroids themselves had been rigged with explosives, turning chunks of rock into deadly shrapnel clouds. The perfectly organized Velkari formation flew directly into the trap. Ships crashed into debris. Shields overloaded from thousands of small impacts. The formation shattered as vessels tried to avoid the sudden chaos. "Now," Taewan commanded. The human fleet struck from everywhere and nowhere. Small groups of ships, 2 or 3 vessels working together, attacked isolated Velkari ships. They used the asteroids for cover, emerging just long enough to fire before disappearing again. Pilot Yuna, recovered from her near-death experience and flying a new fighter, led a squadron through the chaos. Her 3 weeks of experience fighting in debris fields made her nearly impossible to track. She destroyed 5 Velkari ships before they even realized she was there. "This is insane," her wingman shouted over the comm. "We're outnumbered 20 to 1. "Then we make sure we're never fighting 20 at once," Yuna replied, diving under an asteroid and emerging behind a Velkari destroyer. "One target at a time. Always moving. Never stop." On Mars, Captain Jiho watched the battle through long-range sensors. His colony had become a massive war factory. Every mining rig, every 3D printer, every fabrication facility was producing weapons. "Sir, the Lunar Command Center is requesting more ammunition," Officer Minsu reported. "Send everything we have," Jiho ordered, "and double production. If we run out of metal, start mining the moons of Jupiter. We keep feeding this war until it's over." The production facilities worked without stopping. Tungsten rods, missiles, armor plating, and entire ship components poured out of Mars at an impossible rate. What had taken Earth months to build before the war, Mars now produced in hours. On Earth's surface, Sangwoo's resistance had evolved into a coordinated global force. The Velkari ground troops, demoralized and confused, were slowly being pushed back. Every city they tried to hold became a nightmare of ambushes and traps. In the ruins of Busan, Sangwoo met with resistance leaders from a dozen other cities through encrypted communication. The Velkari are calling for evacuation, reported Jimin, who had become his second in command. They can't hold the ground anymore. Don't let them leave easily, Sangwoo ordered. Make every extraction costly. We want the Velkari soldiers to fear setting foot on a human world. The resistance struck at every Velkari landing zone. Captured alien weapons, improvised explosives, and pure determination turned each evacuation into a battle. The Velkari soldiers trained for quick conquests had no experience with prolonged guerrilla warfare. In the asteroid belt, the battle raged for hours. The Velkari fleet size, which should have been their advantage, became their weakness. Large ships couldn't maneuver in the tight spaces between asteroids. Their coordinated tactics fell apart when they couldn't maintain formation. Engineer Daun, now serving aboard Commander Taewan's flagship, had refined the neural disruptor. The new version could be fired from a distance carried by modified missiles. Launch the neural missiles, Taewan ordered. 30 missiles streaked toward the Velkari fleet. The aliens' point defense destroyed most of them. But 5 missiles reached their targets and 5 Velkari ships went dark as their crew's neural networks overloaded. More importantly, the Velkari fleet panicked. They had no defense against a weapon that bypassed shields and armor to attack the crew directly. Every ship became a potential death trap. Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking up, Lieutenant Park reported. Their formation is completely gone. Individual ships are fleeing in all directions. Thelvrax watched his perfect armada disintegrate. 3,000 ships remained functional, but they were scattered and confused. The humans were everywhere, striking from impossible angles using terrain the Velkari couldn't navigate. All ships retreat to open space, he commanded. Reform beyond the asteroid belt. But retreating through the asteroid field was even harder than entering it. Human forces pursued them, destroying ships as they fled. By the time the Velkari fleet regrouped beyond Mars orbit, they had lost 800 vessels. How? Thelvrax demanded. How are they doing this? We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior training. His tactical officer pulled up analysis data. Sir, they're not fighting like a military. They're fighting like hunters. Small packs, hit-and-run tactics using terrain we can't handle. And they're still learning. Every engagement, they adapt new tactics. Thelvrax stared at the data. The humans had been fighting for 3 weeks. In that time, they had developed 12 new weapon systems, 23 new tactical doctrines, and had increased their ship production by 400%. It was impossible. No species should be able to innovate this fast. Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from 3 of our coalition species, another officer reported nervously. The Helcorians, the Trask, and the Venuli are asking permission to withdraw from the war. Denied, Thelvrax snapped. We are the Velkari Empire. We do not surrender. We do not retreat. But even as he said it, he knew the truth. For the first time in 300 years, the Velkari Empire was losing a war. On the Lunar Command Center, Bora analyzed the battle results. The Velkari had retreated, but they weren't broken. They still had over 4,000 ships. Earth had only 200, but numbers didn't tell the whole story anymore. They're scared, Bora said to her staff. They came here expecting an easy victory. Instead, they lost 800 ships in one battle. That fear is our real weapon. She started planning the next phase. The Velkari would regroup and try again. They had to. Their entire empire was built on the idea that they were invincible. Admitting defeat to a primitive species would destroy that image. We need to hit them again before they adapt, Bora decided. Coordinate with Captain Jiho. I want every ship, every weapon, every resource ready for one massive assault. Commander Taewan received Bora's new orders and felt a mix of pride and fear. The young strategist was suggesting something audacious. Instead of defending Earth, she wanted to attack the Velkari fleet directly. It's suicide, Lieutenant Park said quietly. Maybe, Taewan agreed. But we've been doing the impossible for 3 weeks now. Why stop? He looked at his crew. Every face was tired, worn down by constant battle. But no one looked defeated. The Velkari had destroyed their cities, killed billions of people, and brought the full might of an empire against them. And Earth was still fighting. All ships, prepare for assault, Taewan ordered. We're going to show the Velkari what happens when you bring a war to humanity's home. They're rattled. Good, let's make sure they stay that way. All ships prepare for Fina. The 12-hour deadline passed. Humanity had not surrendered. High Archon Thelvrax made the decision he had never made before in 300 years of conquest. He authorized full pacification protocols. The orbital bombardment began at dawn. Sol was first. Massive energy beams struck the city center, turning buildings into vapor. The old palaces, the modern skyscrapers. The research facility where Dr. Haiwan had worked. All of it disappeared in blinding light. Then New York, Mumbai, São Paulo, London, Tokyo, Shanghai. Every major city on Earth became a target. Billions of tons of rock and metal turned to dust in minutes. Commander Taiwan watched from orbit, his hands gripping his command chair so hard the metal bent. His daughter had been in Seoul, his entire family had been in Seoul. Sir, Lieutenant Park's voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. Taiwan said nothing for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew wept openly. Every person on that ship had lost someone in the bombardment. Finally, Taiwan stood up. His voice was cold, harder than steel. Send a message to every human ship, every resistance cell, every colony. The Velkari wanted to break us. Instead, they've made a mistake they can't take back. From this moment on, we don't fight to defend. We fight to destroy. No mercy, no surrender. We end them. The message spread across every human communication channel, and something changed in the survivors. The fear disappeared. The hesitation vanished. What remained was pure, focused rage. In an underground facility beneath Tokyo, engineer Da-eun had survived the bombardment by pure luck. She had been testing a new weapon prototype in a deep bunker when the city above her ceased to exist. The weapon was based on Dr. Haiwan's final research notes, sent minutes before Seoul was destroyed. It was a neural disruptor, specifically designed to target Velkari brain chemistry. Da-eun looked at the prototype. It was crude, short-range, and required a ship to get dangerously close to enemy vessels. It needed more testing, more refinement, more time. She didn't have time. Upload the specifications to military command, she ordered her remaining staff. And prep a transport. I'm taking this weapon to space myself. On Mars, Captain Ji-ho watched the bombardment of Earth with cold determination. His facility had been working non-stop for 12 hours. Now his work was ready. Launch the payload, he commanded. From Mars orbit, thousands of tungsten rods began accelerating toward the Velkari fleet. Not sophisticated missiles, not advanced energy weapons, just massive chunks of metal moving at incredible speeds. The Velkari detected the launch and deployed their energy shields, but the shields were designed to stop energy weapons and explosive missiles. They weren't designed to stop simple kinetic projectiles traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The first rod hit a Velkari cruiser's shield. The shield held for exactly 3 milliseconds before the sheer momentum punched through. The tungsten rod tore through the ship's hull, through its crew quarters, through its engine room, and out the other side. The cruiser exploded, then another rod hit. And another. Within seconds, 30 Velkari ships were gone. The surviving vessels scattered in panic, their perfect formation shattered. Reload and prepare second volley, Ji-ho ordered calmly, and keep manufacturing more. We're going to need them. In Busan, Sang-woo's resistance had transformed the ruined city into a death trap. The Velkari controlled the air, but they couldn't pacify the ground. Every attempt to establish a base ended in ambush. Every patrol disappeared into the rubble. Sang-woo stood in what used to be a subway station, now converted into a command center. Around him, civilians who had become soldiers cleaned weapons and planned attacks. A young woman named Jimin approached him. She had been a medical student before the invasion. Now she carried a captured Velkari rifle. Sang-woo, we intercepted a Velkari transmission, she said. They're requesting ground reinforcements. They say they can't hold the cities. Sang-woo smiled grimly. Good. Make sure they can't. Every landing zone becomes a battlefield. Every street they control costs them blood. We make Earth too expensive to hold. The resistance attacks intensified. Humans used Velkari weapons against them, learned their communications, and exploited every weakness. The aliens had expected terrified refugees. Instead, they found humans who fought with tools, with rocks, with bare hands if necessary. Commander Taiwan's fleet received Da-eun's neural disruptor specifications. The weapon was revolutionary but required a suicide run. Someone had to get close enough to the enemy flagship to deploy it. I'll do it, said Pilot Yuna immediately. Taewon looked at the young pilot. Her fighter was barely functional. She had been flying combat missions for 18 straight hours. By all rights, she should be grounded. Your ship won't survive the approach, Taewon said gently. I know, Yuna replied. But if this weapon works, it'll cripple their command structure. That's worth one fighter. That's worth one pilot. Taewon wanted to refuse, but he had no right to deny anyone their chance to strike back. Not anymore. Equip her fighter with the disruptor, he ordered, and may you fly true, pilot. Yuna's fighter launched 30 minutes later. She approached the Velkari flagship through the debris field. Using every trick she had learned, Velkari point defense destroyed her shields, destroyed her weapons, tore chunks from her hull, but she kept flying. When she was 500 meters from the flagship, close enough to see Velkari crew through the viewport, she activated the neural disruptor. The device sent out a chaotic signal, specifically tuned to Velkari neural patterns. Their brains, optimized for efficiency and coordination, couldn't handle random chaos. It was like pouring sand into a perfect machine. The Velkari flagship went dark. Its engines stopped. Its weapons powered down. Inside, the crew collapsed, their neural networks overloaded, and the signal didn't stop at one ship. It propagated through the Velkari fleet's communication network, carried by their own systems. 30 ships, 50 ships, 100 ships went dark in the space of a minute. Yuna's fighter, engines destroyed and life support failing, drifted away from the silent flagship. She had no power to return to the human fleet, but through her cockpit window she watched Velkari ships floating dead in space. This is Pilot Yuna to command, she transmitted on emergency power. Disruptor successful. Enemy command structure disabled. It was an honor to fly for Earth. She closed her eyes, her oxygen running out. Then her fighter jolted. Through her fading consciousness, she felt her ship being pulled by a tractor beam. Not Velkari, human. Hold on, Yuna, came Commander Taewon's voice. We've got you. You're coming home. High Archon Thelvrax regained consciousness in his darkened flagship. Emergency power slowly restored systems. Around him, his crew was recovering from the neural attack. Damage report, he croaked. 147 ships disabled. His second-in-command reported, his voice shaking. 73 ships completely non-functional. Ground forces on Earth requesting immediate evacuation. Mars colony forces destroyed 30% of our supply fleet. Thelvrax stared at the reports. This was impossible. The humans should be broken. Their cities were destroyed. Their fleet was crippled. They had lost billions of people, but they weren't surrendering. They were getting stronger. Send a priority message to Velkari High Command, Thelvrax said slowly. Request full fleet mobilization. All available forces. We need reinforcements, his advisor looked shocked. Sir, we've never needed reinforcements before. The Council will question your command. Then let them question, Thelvrax replied. These humans, they're not like any species we've encountered. They don't break. They don't surrender. They just keep fighting. And they're learning faster than we can adapt. He pulled up tactical data on human resistance. Every category showed the same pattern. Rapid innovation, extreme adaptability, refusal to quit even when defeat was certain. They've developed new weapons in hours, he continued. They've learned to use our own technology against us in days. Their ground forces fight with a savagery that terrifies our soldiers. And their space forces, he gestured at the disabled ships around him. They fight like madmen. What are your orders, Archon? Thelvrax looked at Earth, that small blue world that had cost him so much. We bring the full might of the Velkari Empire. 5,000 ships, 10,000 if necessary. We don't try to occupy them. We don't try to convert them. We exterminate them before they become a threat to the entire galaxy. The message was sent. Across Velkari space, the Empire mobilized for total war. On Earth, in the ruins of what had been Seoul, Dr. Haewon's assistant Kyung-mi emerged from a deep shelter. The city was gone, but her mentor's research had survived. She looked at the data on her tablet. Dr. Haewon's final notes detailed something incredible. Human innovation under extreme pressure had resulted in 12 major technological breakthroughs in just one day of fighting. The same progress the Velkari achieved in 12 centuries. We're not just fighting to survive, Kyung-mi whispered to herself. We're evolving. She uploaded the data to the resistance network, across Earth and throughout the solar system. Human scientists began building on Haywan's work. New weapons, new tactics, new ways to fight. The Velkari had 300 years of military tradition. Humanity had 300,000 years of survivalance. Dr. Haywan's discovery spread through military networks like wildfire. Within 2 hours, every human commander knew the truth. The Velkari had made a critical error. They had scanned human bodies, but not human nature. Commander Haywan called an emergency meeting with his remaining ship captains. The holographic conference room showed 14 tired faces, each one commanding one of Earth's last warships. The enemy thinks we'll break, Taiwan explained, sharing Haywan's data. Every species they've fought surrendered when casualties reached 15%. We've already lost 60% of our fleet. By their calculations, we should have given up an hour ago. So what do? Asked Captain Dong-hyun of the UNS Defiant. We use their expectations against them, Taiwan replied. They fight in organized formations because that's what works for them. Their brains are wired for efficiency and patterns. We stop fighting like them and start fighting like humans. Chaotic, unpredictable, relentless. In a modified fighter bay on the damaged carrier UNS Horizon, pilot Yuna ran final checks on her ship. The fighter was barely holding together. Hull plating was cracked. The AI system was completely offline. By all military regulations, the craft should be grounded. Yuna didn't care about regulations. Her younger brother had been in Tokyo when the Velkari began their first bombardment. She hadn't heard from him in 3 hours. Yuna, your ship isn't cleared for flight, the deck officer protested. Then don't clear it, she replied, climbing into the cockpit. I'll take responsibility. The fighter launched into space, joining a scattered group of other damaged human craft. They were the walking wounded of the fleet, ships too broken for standard combat operations. All units, this is Commander Taiwan. The radio crackled. New orders. Stop thinking like a military. Start thinking like survivors. Use every advantage. The asteroid field, the debris, even our own destroyed ships. Make them fight in chaos, Yuna understood immediately. She aimed her fighter toward a dense debris field created by the earlier battle. Velkari sensors were powerful, but designed to track organized threats. She would give them anything but organized. 3 Velkari destroyers detected her approach and moved to intercept. Their weapons locked on her fighter. But Yuna didn't run. She accelerated directly toward them, weaving through floating wreckage at speeds that should have been impossible. The Velkari ships fired. Energy beams tore through space, destroying debris around her. But Yuna's hands moved faster than conscious thought. She dodged left, rolled right, dropped under a piece of destroyed hull plating, and emerged firing her own weapons. Her missiles struck the lead Velkari destroyer's bridge. The explosion was small but precise. The destroyer drifted, its command center gone. The other 2 Velkari ships tried to follow her into the debris field. But their hulls were too large, their movements too calculated and predictable. When they tried to match Yuna's maneuvers, they crashed into debris. One ship's shields failed. Yuna fired again. Another Velkari vessel exploded. On Earth, the situation was desperate. The Velkari had begun landing ground forces in major cities. Their soldiers were tall, armored, and carried weapons that could level buildings. In Busan, a former Special Forces operative named Sang-woo watched the alien landing craft touch down in the city center. He had retired from military service 2 years ago. Now he wished he hadn't. Around him, civilians fled in panic. But some stayed. Some looked at Sang-woo with questions in their eyes. We can't fight them, a young man said, staring at the massive alien soldiers. Look at them. Look at their weapons. Sang-woo studied the aliens carefully. They moved in perfect formation. Every soldier synchronized with the others. Beautiful, efficient, predictable. We can't fight them their way. Sang-woo agreed. So we fight them our way. Follow me. He led a group of 30 civilians into the city's underground subway system. Sang-woo knew these tunnels. He had trained in them. And he knew something the Velkari didn't. Cities weren't just buildings. They were mazes, traps, and home territory. The Velkari soldiers moved through Busan streets expecting terrified civilians. Instead, they found empty roads. Silence. Then from windows and rooftops, makeshift explosives rained down. Nothing advanced. Just fuel, fertilizer, and desperate humans who refused to run. The aliens' shields held against most attacks. But the explosions created smoke, dust, and confusion. Their perfect formation broke apart. And when they broke formation, they became vulnerable. Sang Woo's group struck from the tunnels using stolen Velkari weapons from fallen soldiers. They didn't try to win. They tried to make the aliens bleed, to make them afraid, to show them that every street, every building, every meter of Earth would cost them. In orbit, Commander Taewon watched the reports flood in. Ground forces fighting across every continent, pilots like Yuna destroying enemy ships against impossible odds. Captain Jiho's Mars colony sending the first shipment of newly manufactured ammunition. And the Velkari weren't adapting. "Sir, enemy fleet is maintaining standard formation," Lieutenant Park reported. "They're not changing tactics." Taewon nodded. That was the key. The Velkari were efficient but inflexible. They had a doctrine that had worked for 300 years. Changing it would require admitting it wasn't perfect. "All ships implement swarm tactics," Taewon ordered. "Single ships only. No formations. Attack, retreat, attack from a different angle. Never give them a predictable target." The remaining human warships scattered across Earth's orbit. Each captain began fighting their own private war. The UNS Defiant hid in the shadow of the moon and fired missiles from cover. The UNS Courage ran directly at the enemy fleet, launched all its fighters, then retreated before the Velkari could respond. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't military doctrine. But it was working. High Archon Thelvrak stood in the command center of his flagship staring at casualty reports. 47 ships damaged, 12 destroyed. Ground forces requesting reinforcements in 15 major cities. "This is impossible," he said to his second-in-command. "They should have surrendered hours ago. Their fleet is nearly destroyed. Their cities are under attack. Why do they continue fighting?" His advisor checked the data. "Our psychological analysis indicates they should have broken at 15% casualties. Current human casualties are estimated at 68% and rising." "Then your analysis is wrong," Thelvrak snapped. "Update it. Find their breaking point." "Sir, we're analyzing their biology again. There may be factors we missed in the initial scans." Back in Seoul, Dr. Haewon continued her research. She had discovered something else. Something that explained why humans kept fighting when any logical species would surrender. Human evolution had been violent. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcano eruptions, and countless near extinctions. Humanity's ancestors had survived by refusing to quit. Those who gave up died. Those who kept fighting, even against impossible odds, sometimes lived. That instinct was coded into human DNA. Humans didn't fight because they thought they could win. They fought because surrender meant death and survival meant fighting. Haewon sent her updated report to military command. She included one final note. "The Velkari can't break us because breaking isn't in our nature. We're a species that survived by being too stubborn to die." In space, pilot Yuna regrouped with 5 other damaged fighters. Together they attacked a Velkari supply convoy. The enemy ships were larger and better armed. But Yuna and her squadron didn't care about fair fights. They struck from multiple angles using debris as cover, firing and retreating before the enemy could target them effectively. 2 human fighters were destroyed. But the entire Velkari convoy was crippled. As Yuna's damaged fighter limped back toward the human fleet, she received a transmission from Commander Taewon. "All pilots, this is command. You've done well. The enemy is confused. They're requesting reinforcements. That means we're hurting them. Keep hitting them. Never let them rest. Never give them time to adapt." Yuna checked her fuel reserves. Almost empty. Her weapons were down to 3 missiles. Her shields were failing. "Understood, Command," she replied. "We'll keep fighting." On Earth, Sang Woo's resistance group had grown from 30 to 300. Word had spread through Busan. The aliens could be hurt. They could be killed. They weren't invincible. Other cities reported similar resistance movements. The Velkari controlled the skies, but they couldn't hold the ground. Every building became a fortress. Every street became a battlefield, and the humans learned faster than the Velkari thought possible. Within hours, resistance fighters had figured out how to use captured alien weapons. Technology that should have taken months to understand was being employed after minutes of experimentation. Commander Taewon watched the countdown timer. 2 hours remained until the 12-hour deadline. The Velkari had said they never needed more time than that. They were about to learn something new. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Velkari flagship," Lieutenant Park announced. High Archon Thelvrax appeared on screen. For the first time, he didn't look amused. He looked concerned. Commander Taiwan, this fighting is pointless. You cannot win. Accept our terms. Taiwan smiled coldly. You said you never needed more than 12 hours. You have 2 hours left. Are you going to make your deadline, Archon? The transmission cut off abruptly. Taiwan turned to his crew. The ships appeared without warning. One moment Earth's orbit was clear and peaceful. The next moment the sky filled with metal. Hundreds of alien vessels, each one larger than any human-made structure, blocked out the stars. Commander Taiwan stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable, Earth's largest warship. He stared at the screen showing the enemy fleet. His hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. Behind him, his crew worked in silence. Everyone knew what those ships meant. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Park, the communications officer. "Put it on screen." The image that appeared made several crew members gasp. The alien was tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift between blue and purple. Its eyes were too large, too knowing. Humans of Earth, the alien spoke in perfect English, though its mouth didn't match the words. "I am High Archon Thelvrax of the Velkari Empire. For 300 of your years, we have brought order to this galaxy. We have united 12 species under our banner. We have ended countless wars and brought peace to 1,000 worlds." Taiwan said nothing. He watched and listened. "You will surrender your world within 12 hours, Thelvrax continued. You will accept our rule. You will join the Empire. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact. Every species resists at first. Every species surrenders. We have never needed more than 12 hours. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent. "Sir?" Lieutenant Park looked at Taiwan, waiting. Taiwan took a deep breath. He thought about his daughter and soul. He thought about his brother on Mars colony. He thought about the 7 billion people on Earth who had no idea their world had just been invaded. "Send a message to all ships," he said quietly. "Battle stations. We do not surrender." Far below, in a research facility buried deep beneath Seoul, Dr. Haywan worked in her laboratory. She had been studying the alien scanning waves for the past hour. Every few minutes, pulses of energy swept across Earth, probing, measuring, analyzing. At first, she thought they were looking for weapons, military installations, defense systems. But the scans went deeper than that. They were examining human biology itself, DNA patterns, brain structures, nervous systems. Haywan's assistant, a young researcher named Kyung-mi, brought her more data. "Doctor, look at this pattern. They're scanning us like we scan animals at a farm." Haywan felt cold fear settle in her stomach. Kyung-mi was right. The Velkari weren't scanning for threats. They were cataloging livestock. "Get this information to military command immediately," Haywan ordered, "and start running comparisons. I want to know what they're looking for and what they might be missing." On Mars colony, Captain Jiho received the evacuation order. The message was clear. All non-essential personnel were to return to Earth immediately. Mars colony was to be abandoned. Jiho looked at the message for a long time. Then he deleted it. "Sir?" His second-in-command, Officer Minsu, stared at him. "The evacuation order, I saw it," Jiho said calmly. "We're not leaving." "But sir, the regulations were written for normal situations." Jiho pulled up a star chart showing the enemy fleet. "This is not normal. If we abandon Mars, we lose our only off-world industrial base. We lose our mining operations. We lose strategic position." He turned to face his crew. "Only 30 people remained on the colony, all volunteers. I'm not ordering anyone to stay, but I think we can do more good here than running back to Earth. Who's with me?" Every hand went up. "Good," Jiho smiled. "Then let's get to work. I want every mining rig converted to weapons production. I want every transport loaded with ore. If Earth is going to fight, they'll need ammunition." Back in orbit, the Velkari fleet moved into attack position. Taiwan watched 50 alien ships break formation and approach Earth's defensive line. "All ships hold position," he commanded. "Wait for my signal." The human fleet consisted of 37 vessels. Most were converted cargo ships and scientific vessels, hastily fitted with weapons. Against the Velkari armada, they looked like toys. The enemy ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy lanced through space, striking the human shields. The UN's Indomitable shook violently. Alarms blared across the bridge. "Return fire," Taiwan ordered. Human missiles and railgun rounds shot toward the enemy. Some hit their targets. Most were intercepted by Velkari point defense systems. 3 human ships exploded in the first 30 seconds. "They're too strong," Lieutenant Park said, his voice shaking. "Our weapons barely scratch them." Taewon watched another human ship die. Then another. His carefully built fleet was being torn apart. "All ships scatter," he commanded. "Break formation. Make them chase you." The human vessels split apart, each one heading in a different direction. The Velkari ships paused, confused by this sudden chaos. They were used to organized battles, formal formations. This was neither. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Velkari," Park reported. High Archon Thelvrax appeared on screen again. This time he looked amused rather than threatening. "Commander Taewon," the alien said, somehow knowing his name. "You fight well for a primitive species. But you must see this is pointless. We have 500 ships in orbit. You have 34 remaining. Surrender now and we will be merciful." Taewon met the alien's gaze. "You said you've conquered 1,000 worlds in 300 years. That's impressive." "Indeed," Thelvrax agreed, clearly pleased. "But you've never fought humans before." Taewon continued. "You don't know what we're capable of when someone threatens our home. You're about to learn." He cut the transmission. Back in Seoul, Dr. Haewon made a breakthrough. She had been comparing Velkari scans to human biology databases for hours. Now, staring at her screen, she understood something the aliens had missed. The Velkari had studied human strength, speed, and intelligence. They had measured human technology and found it primitive. They had calculated Earth's military capacity and found it weak. But they had completely failed to measure something else. Something the Velkari databases didn't even have a category for: human adaptability. The Velkari scans showed that their brains were highly specialized and efficient. Once they learned something, they performed it perfectly. But they couldn't easily change or adapt. Human brains were different. Messy, inefficient, but capable of fundamental rewiring in response to new challenges. Humans could learn, adapt, and change strategies faster than any species the Velkari had encountered. And there was something else. Something in human pain tolerance and psychological resilience that the scans had marked as an error in the data. The reading seemed impossible. No species should be able to endure what humans routinely survived. Haewon grabbed her communicator. "Get me military command. I need to speak with Commander Taewon immediately. I've found something. A weakness in their analysis. A way we might survive this." In orbit, Taewon's remaining ships regrouped behind the moon. 14 vessels remained. More than half his fleet was gone. The Velkari had stopped pursuing, confident in their victory. On the main screen, a countdown timer appeared. The Velkari had given Earth 12 hours. 9 hours remained, sir, Lieutenant Park said quietly. "What do we do now?" Taewon looked at his exhausted crew. He thought about Dr. Haewon's urgent message waiting in his queue. He thought about Captain Jiho on Mars refusing to abandon his post. He thought about 7 billion humans who refused to kneel. Now, Taewon smiled grimly, now we show them why you never corner a human. We have 9 hours to make them regret ever coming here. Let's get to work. The timer continued counting down. Above Earth, the Velkari fleet waited for the inevitable surrender. They would wait a long time.